Today on Locked On Rockies, a busy weekend as a flurry of moves, a trade, a big extension, lots happening with the Colorado Rockies, so we had to bring in two of the best in the business to talk about it.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 25th day of March in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies podcast on YouTube, where, folks, you all have been tuning in, and I'm going to hit you guys immediately with a comment from the YouTube question, or from the YouTube comments here. Is Trevor Story better than Troy Tulowitzky? That is according to one YouTube commenter. Let me get his name. Mile High Mez says Story with a bunch of greater than signs. Tulowitzky. What are your thoughts, Evan Lang and Skyler Timmins of Purple Row, Rocky Mountain Rooftop, and other things?
No.
Yeah.
I think people
not even remotely close.
I think people forget that Troy Tulowitzky, there was like a nice little graphic that I saw that like Troy Tulowitzky had one of the highest WARs of a rookie, like of all of in Rockies history. And I believe it's like third all time or something like that. And he didn't win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And it was also one of the best defensive shortstops when he was healthy.
Yeah.
Set the fielding percentage rookie record for a shortstop in all of Major League Baseball his rookie season. That was only just broken by Ezekiel Tovar last year.
Yeah, I think Tulowitzky gets dinged because he was hurt so often. But when he was on that field and healthy, like, dude was best in baseball. Plus, Story struck out a ton, and Tulo didn't do that as much.
If Troy Tulowitzky had stayed healthy for more of his career, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. That is how good Troy Tulowitzky was.
Yeah, and I think there wouldn't have been any sort of real argument against him because he was that good. But anyway, I saw that one, made me chuckle a little bit. We got lots to get to.
And I love Trevor Story. I adore Trevor Story.
I don't think any one of us is going to sit here and say we don't like Trevor Story. Like, who doesn't? I mean, one of the best swings the Rockies have ever seen, Trevor Story. But I saw that one and I did chuckle. I was like, I think people forget how good Tulo was. He's someone that is definitely on that list of if healthy, his career would have been much different. But anyway, we got lots to dive into today. Before we dive into everything, just want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, guys, busy weekend for the Rockies here. And let's start with a trade that, Evan, you said you didn't like. And I think now the Rockies have made back-to-back trades where a little bit of a head scratcher. I have a bit of a bias. I thought Joe Rock, I really was rooting for him. He went to my college. I like left-handed pitching. I really didn't think the Rockies needed to add another utility style guy that can play multiple positions. And what do? Well, they trade for another guy that can do just that, except he bats left-handed, I think is the difference. Tell me about the Cave trade. Tell me what your thoughts are there. The Cave trade with the subsequent releasing of Zimmer as well as a result of it.
This trade makes absolutely no sense to me. Jake Cave is like, I'm not trying to be mean about it. He's not good. He's barely a major league caliber talent. In 6 big league seasons, he's only accumulated 2 wins above replacement. His glove is not that good. His bat is not that good. His speed is not that good. They make this trade for him. And I asked a Phillies fan, how do you feel about this trade? And you guys giving up Jake Cave. And he said, thank God. So that should tell you about this trade. And it especially makes no sense because it also got rid of any 40-man roster flexibility that the Rockies had, because in order to make this trade, they had to send Herman Marquez to the 60-day IL, which they could have used to add a camp body or somebody to the 40-man roster. And the corresponding move for the Jake Cave trade was that they released Bradley Zimmer, which I was never huge on Bradley Zimmer to begin with, but Zimmer at least is a plus glove and has very good speed. And Jake Cave really doesn't have either. He's played more center field than any other position in his career, but that's followed up very closely by his innings in left field. His glove is not that good in center field. I would call it below average. Something like -7 career defensive runs saved in center field, which I don't think is going to play in Coors.
A very difficult center field.
This is not a good trade. It's a very frustrating, very confusing trade where, yes, we didn't really give up that much. It's cash considerations. But for a 31-year-old below average player, I don't like it. I don't like this trade at all.
What is Cave doing that Hilliard can't do? Right? Like if you're really thinking backup center fielder, which it seems like this move is the move that it's making, why not play a guy that's more comfortable playing center field in Coors Field because he's been there, he's played there, and a guy that we know at least, you can say what you will about Sam Hilliard. We know the guy can hit the ball 500 feet. Like, there's at least that where it's like, nothing about this Cave trade really. I mean, Evan, Evan, you already dove in. Skyler, did you see anything about this trade that jumped off the page at you? I mean, again, I think the one thing to remind, like, we don't have to I think the bigger deal is the roster spot it's taking up, not what the Rockies gave up with the cash considerations. This is one less spot that the Rockies could have used with really, the list goes on with who could have filled that last spot.
Well, the old baseball adage, you can never have too many corner outfields that can also play first base. I believe Dick Monfort said that. Yeah. Thomas Harding had written the Rockies were still looking for ways to upgrade the roster before opening day. And us over at Purple Row were like, well, what exactly does that look like? What does that even mean? And I can tell you now, trading for Jake Cave isn't an upgrade. Now, at least it's only cash that we're sending over, so thank goodness for that. But it's a move that's not exactly upgrading what you already had in camp. Like, yeah, maybe he has a little bit better bat, even just a tiny bit over like a Bradley Zimmer. But even then, you're waiting, hoping and banking that he can regain his form that he had in Minnesota a couple years ago, which, yeah, he was good with Minnesota a couple years ago. But it's not exactly the upgrade maybe you're looking for. And maybe this is a knee-jerk reaction, pun intended, to Nolan Jones fouling the ball off his knee, but he's going to be fine, he says. So this move it's weird because you already had what he's bringing to the table already there in camp or in your system already. And it just muddies the water of what do you do still with Tolia and Bouchard and Montero? All these guys are still vying for the same spots, that it just gets even more convoluted and difficult now.
And Skyler, I wouldn't even say he was good in Minnesota. He had 2 adequate seasons to start his career in Minnesota. And then his last 3 seasons, 2 in Minnesota and 1 with the Phillies, he was barely above the Mendoza line. His on-base percentage is well below 300. He's not slugging at all. He can't really field that well. He doesn't draw that many walks. He strikes out a lot. And people have said, like, Paul, he's been doing pretty good in spring training. Spring training, he's hitting 333, 355, 433 with 3 ribbies and 2 doubles, but with only 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. You know who were both having better springs than Jake Cave? Sam Hilliard, who was designated for assignment, and Bradley Zimmer, who was just released.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher where it's like, I know we're arguing about a backup position for the Rockies here, but it matters because muddying the waters, especially in this season, is something that every roster spot matters. Who is on the roster, whether they are on the bench or in the starting lineup, impacts who's going to get playing time. Because again, if you're going backups, like throw Hunter Goodman out there or like Sean Bouchard in center. Like, let's just see what happens, right? Like, we obviously think Brenton Doyle is the main focus, but as we're figuring things out this year, I'd still rather these young guys that are fighting for spots kind of get, their opportunity to be thrown into the fire a little bit. I know that's not always the best chance and not great for development, but if they're going to be utility outfielders and bounce around, let's see what happens instead of now we got a guy, because are we going to be excited to see Jake Cave come up to bat with a sub 200 batting average and double-digit strikeouts like at the end of April? Like, are we really going to be that pumped about that? Because that's what the numbers tell us.
I'm having Matt Adams flashbacks.
Yeah, I mean, how many Rockies can we think of that actually doing? And it's like, because it's every time Jake Cave is going to be on the field, I'm like, why isn't X playing instead? It's going to be, why isn't this player playing instead of Cave? Because there's so many players that I'd rather see. Let's just switch here before we head to the break. Tell me about the roller coaster you guys felt yesterday when you saw that Nolan Jones was being helped off the field after rifling a ball into his knee and couldn't be helped. Because I went from like, man, this season's going to be fun to, oh boy, this season is going to be a lot less fun real fast.
Oh, for sure. I had a minor panic attack. I was watching the game live, was just having a nice relaxing day, enjoying the game, and then I see the whack. I see him go straight down and take a hot minute to get up. Required ample assistance to get off the field and get down the dugout stairs. We hear he had to get carted over to the Rockies clubhouse, and I was just like, oh, he just shattered his knee.
Right.
Yeah. I wasn't paying too much attention. I just saw like messages. Oh, Nolan Jones down. I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then seeing video of where he hits him, like, hopefully it's just above like his knee, because give him that old dead leg back to the school days. Bang. And luckily it's just above the kneecap. Gave himself just a really bad rest of his dead leg. But it's good that it sounds like he's okay and might be ready for opening day. But yeah, I'm sure his knee's kind of bruised, not feeling too good. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on still, like worrying. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, I'd not play him until opening day. Potentially even not play him on opening day. Just like what's waiting one more game there, or especially the rest of this week. Like there should be no reason. Like I know that Nolan Jones has struck out a lot this spring or whatever, but it's way more important that he can get on the track to heal that up, because he's going to be doing some running and doing, the real thing starts here in less than a week. I mean, it's going to start counting here real soon. Still lots to get into. The rotation is set for the Rockies. I want to talk about that. Plus, Ezequiel Tovar staying with the Rockies. We're going to talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney, and not just March basketball. You can bet through the playoffs. You can bet throughout the rest of the regular season for the NBA. You can see all the action available on FanDuel on the easy-to-use FanDuel app. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, and you can even pick who's going to win it all. The Avs playing some exciting hockey as well. Maybe something to keep your eyes on with those $200 in bonus bets. See all the action for yourself on the FanDuel app, or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Hey, if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day, have to turn down the volume with all that shouting, you can make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm not going to be doing a lot of shouting here with Evan and Skyler, both joining me here from Purple Row and Rocky Mountain Rooftop. All sorts of good stuff here coming up. What does the week ahead look like for you all as we're getting closer? Do you guys got anything exciting that you want to tease or talk about as we're getting closer to opening day?
The big one is we'll have our regular Monday episode that we have every Monday, but we're probably going to have to record an extra one because the Rockies do stuff after we record, which is always annoying. But I think we've got Evan has an interview coming up with somebody from the Spokane Indians staff, not a player, but somebody that works for the Indians. A fun conversation, he said, and then we have Every Rocky Ever coming out too. So we have a busy week leading up to opening day.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's exciting. I mean, and now the time of most optimism for the Rockies is this week. So that's when that's what we like to see. And let's talk Tovar here. We'll finish out with the rotation talk. Ezequiel Tovar, it's a 7-year, I think it's roughly close to $90 million deal. I think I saw something like that.
So the terms of the contract are 7 years for $63.5 million, according to Thomas Harding, and a club option for an 8th year that would take his total earnings to about $84 million if exercised. So very much they have just bought out the remainder of Tovar's, rookie deal and arbitration years, and have the potential to add on to that with a club option. If everything works out as planned, this will take Tovar through his age 29 season. He's 21, almost 22 right now.
So Tovar is going to have nearly a decade in the league by the time if he stays up and he plays every year, by the time he turns 32, he'll have a decade in the league, right?
Yeah.
That's unreal. Like, that is crazy when you think about how hard that is. Is this the right time for this move? I mean, it seems like I think it was a foregone conclusion. We watched last year. We said, this guy's got the goods. Like, he's got the potential. Was now the right time to do this? And Evan, you were shaking your head there enthusiastically. So you think this was the right time for it?
There's no better time to have done this other than, say, last year. We are now seeing more and more often teams lock down their top prospects or guys they consider to be the future of the organization for long-term deals. And even halfway through last year, we were all saying it's time for the Rockies to do this with Tovar. And for Tovar especially, it's good because one, it's a ludicrously team-friendly deal for the ceiling that this young man has, but also it's one of the few times where the Rockies have shown us that they are considering a direction for the future of the organization. So this is fantastic, and especially this week right before the opening, right before opening day, having it done and knowing, all right, we've got this kid locked down for the long term, and now we can just sit back and enjoy. I think that is going to be a great deal of importance to a team that is going to be bad in 2024, pardon me, let's be honest. But at the very least, you have this guy to watch, and you know that you're going to be watching him for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, give him the old Atlanta Braves special, and we'll see if he has to donate 1% to the Rockies charity. But it's a good, like you said, a nice team-friendly deal. We don't know the full terms of it, of how it's stretched out over that contract, but it roughly averages out to about $9 million a year, which for what Tovar could do and his potential, that's kind of a pretty good bargain there throughout his arbitration years and whatnot. And so I'm sure it'll probably escalate up towards those final years, but a good, nice team-friendly deal for what Tovar can be. And I think that's the nice part, is he can still develop. There's still more in there that we're hoping to see. And so this is one of those instances where you're paying for the future potential instead of what he's done, but we're paying for what he can be. And all signs point to he can become that if he can just continue to develop, work on some things this season that he needs to, mainly cut down on those strikeouts.
Yeah, the main thing for him is we already know he's an incredible defender. Gold Glove in his rookie season, set the new, as I mentioned in the first half, set the new record for best fielding percentage by a rookie shortstop in MLB history. So now it's just the bat, and if the bat can become, like we said about Brenton Doyle, if the bat can be even league average, he's going to have an incredible career.
And I think you mentioned the arbitration stuff is really now. Don't even have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about arbitration stuff. You don't have to and I think that while, Tovar, you're sitting there, of course you want to get, maximum money side, but you'll get there. I mean, you with this deal, it's going to be expiring roughly around the time right where you're in that prime. And with the Rockies, hopefully the prime of a run and the prime of the team building something special. But I think it's a right move, because now, like you said, Tovar's whole focus now can just be on being the best version of himself right now and helping the Colorado Rockies. He's got a young family. Boom. Settled. Contract, money, set. We are here. You can set up here. We can set up and establish here. I think that really is going to be the type of stuff that we don't think about all the time as fans, but that really can add to just taking a weight off of the outside of the game. And it's really nice to see the Rockies being confident in their guy, because it's really clear that they think Tovar is the next thing. I mean, even with Jones and Doyle and stuff, I still think that the Rockies have, since they had Ezekiel Tovar since last year, they really believe in him being the future face of the franchise.
And I've seen people that are worried about, oh, this is another Ryan McMahon situation. We're going for gold glove defense over a bat. But with McMahon, we already kind of knew what he was doing, and that extension was still kind of, well, why are you doing that? But with Tovar, like I said, we have an idea of what he can do, but I don't think we've still seen the fully evolved form. This isn't even his final form yet. You know, he's able to go even further beyond and turn into Super Saiyan 3 or something.
Yeah, go over 9,000.
Yeah. He's just about to, in about 100 days, 150 days, turn 23 years old. That is so much time for him to continue to develop and learn. And he had overall a really good year last year where, yeah, he struck out a lot. He's a rookie. It's going to happen. But he still put up pretty solid slugging numbers. He, stole plenty of bases. He drew an okay number of walks, honestly. Would definitely have liked to see more walks to the strikeout total, but not too bad, all things considered. We've seen the tantalizing glimpses of what he can be and know that he's still got time to evolve into that player. Because like you said with Ryan McMahon was kind of set in his major league profile when we handed him that extension.
Do you guys, I mean, I think the time is the best thing too. Like we said, it's like, there's still so much left to be there. And then when you really think about it, the Rockies would be committing to this time more likely than not anyway. And if they were doing arbitration deals all the time, it could be, an $18 million deal here. It could be a $23 million deal. And that's way different, especially as the Rockies are heading into next year with a really interesting situation when it comes to free agents, how much money they are going to be able to spend and what they're going to want to do. All right, so I think we all agree. Love the Tovar deal, and man, it's a sign where it's like that's good business sense there a little bit too. We got to give props to the front office after we grill them a little bit there, because again, I still think the trades that they've made the past week are a little weird. But was there anything about the roster or finalization of the roster from spring that surprised you guys? Anything that stood out to you here as we get closer to opening day?
I think for me, a big one is Ty Block got assigned to minor league camp. I thought for sure, third time's the charm. He's going to do it again because he'd be another lefty in the bullpen, but got reassigned to minor league camp. So it's kind of, well, who's the extra bullpen guy they're going to have now? Is it going to be Matt Caracidi or Matt Cook? Are they going to go back with what they had last year of one of those guys? So that's what's most confusing to me. Like, what are we doing with the bullpen?
What's frustrating with me is that I mentioned this in the first half, is that we basically don't really have a lot of 40-man flexibility anymore with the Jake Cave trade, where I'm not sure who the Rockies DFA off the 40-man that they are comfortable with exposing to waivers. Maybe Riley Pint, maybe Warming Bernabel, but now you've got multiple guys who you might want to add onto your 40-man before the spring starts, and you've burned a spot for this trade for Jake Cave, and I have no idea what they're gonna do on that to try and add people onto the roster. I mean, bright side, you don't have to worry about adding Zimmer onto the roster now, or Ty Block, but you still need bodies because Lucas Gilbreth and Daniel Bard are both going to start the season on the injured list. And so either you put them on the 60-day injured list, which I don't think they want to do, or you've got to DFA a couple guys or make some more trades.
Maybe that's the interesting thing. I mean, if the team is saying that they're looking to get better, is it unlikely to think that this team is not done with trades? I mean, and would they be any trades of significance? I can't imagine they flip Montero right now, for example.
Yeah, and that's the hard part is they still have to figure out what to do with Bouchard and Tolia and Montero. Are they going to carry all three of them? It's not really feasible for building a roster to have those three guys all at once. So somebody's got to be an odd man out still.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated because, they say, oh, we want to get better, but then they do this trade, which does not make them a better team and potentially makes them need to figure out more stuff. Because like you said, now it's before this trade, because Jake Cave is also a first baseman, it made at least a little more sense to go into the season carrying Tovar, Bouchard, and Tolia. And now you really can't, in my opinion.
And I'd rather carry those guys like that.
Jake Cave.
Unless, hopefully we look back in this in 6 months and Jake Cave is making us eat our words and the Rockies did it. One of the sneaky best things that of the deadline or of the offseason, but I doubt it. So we're going to dive into a little bit more of the weekend and mostly just finish up with the starting rotation here. And coming up in segment number 3 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos. You can see it all at Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices, and learn more at amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Winding down the show here with Evan Lang and Skyler Timmins of Purple Row, Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Make sure that you are following Purple Row all season long for daily articles on the Rockies as well. Rocky Mountain Rooftop, more Rockies podcast action. Guys, the rotation set. I don't think there's anything too surprising other than Hudson being the 5th and not the 4th member of the rotation. I thought that is a little bit interesting. I thought a nice, maybe a little confidence booster for Ryan Feltner to be the 4th instead of the 5th. Do you guys have any thoughts on the rotation? Anything there? Were you surprised to see that the winners ended up being Quantrill and Hudson in the rotation?
I think we knew for a fact that Quantrill was going to be in the rotation when they acquired him. I've been operating all season as though he was going to either be 2nd or 3rd in the rotation. I talked about it in my article on Purple Row for State of the Rotation week or so ago. Nothing surprising there. Also not terribly surprised to see Ryan Feltner as the number 4 guy. Honestly, what I was expecting as well. I knew that number 5 spot was going to come down to either Dakota Hudson or Peter Lambert. Lambert in this occasion ended up being the odd man out. He'll start the season as the long relief man, a role in which he was perfectly fine, totally cromulent being last year. So now we have Dakota Hudson as the number 5. Basically, I think we all kind of knew how this was going to play out coming into spring training, and it just was a matter of who was in what spot. And here we are. I'm not too surprised by any of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Hudson, he's probably not the best option, but he's had some good flashes this spring. He's also had some ugly outings, but then again, who hasn't in spring training? But Peter Lambert, yeah, just gets the odd man out. And it's a different look, putting Feltner 4th in the rotation, just because, yeah, he's a little better and also can throw a little harder. And so it's a different look splitting up Gomber, Feltner, Hudson. Otherwise, you're going to get kind of two softer throwing lefty-righty going back-to-back. So it just evens things out a little more, getting Feltner in there 4th. But, yeah, a pretty substandard move that we could have all predicted probably.
Right. Do we expect more from Feltner or Gomber this year?
Gomber definitely has more to prove. It's tough because he's been very hard to evaluate this spring because he's had some real rough outings this spring. But we also know that he has been retooling his mechanics a lot, and he talked in a couple interviews and said that, you know, it's been a difficult transition because he's been doing the same thing for so long, but he's basically changed his delivery mechanics so that he's putting less pressure on his back, which he's had all that injury history with. And, you know, as of recording right now, he's having a totally fine outing in spring right now. So I think he's got the most to prove, especially because he is potentially, depending on what happens with Montero, the last man standing from the Nolan Arenado trade. And he's already admitted that he's, you know, felt a lot of pressure from that, versus Feltner's big thing is just going to be stay healthy, keep working on your stuff. You know, he's still coming back from that traumatic experience. So I feel like that's where the pressure is more divided out to.
Yeah, Feltner's got to prove that he can be a consistent big league starter. I think that's the big thing, because we've seen flashes of brilliance. We've also seen flashes of not brilliance. And so I think it's him getting all the pieces to fit together and really find that consistency and find who he is. And Gomber's just got to prove that, yeah, I can still pitch. Like, I can be that consistent contributor, because I think in that rotation, he's one that you kind of look and you're like, how much longer is he going to stick around for? You know, type of thing.
And when does the flip happen between Lambert and him? When does Gomber become the long relief guy, which he has also done that role? That's not something that Gomber would be. Certainly not what Gomber, I think, wants as a player and as the professional. He, of course, wants to be the starter, but if he's put into that role, he will be able to handle it because it's something that he does. All right, two out there questions just to wrap up the show on a fun note here as we kick off the final week of spring training and get ready for opening day. The Colorado Rockies sign Jordan Montgomery on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time to a 1-year deal. What do you think?
Sure.
I mean, if they do it, sure, I'd be delighted, but it's never going to happen.
You don't think? I mean, you know, a little rebound year, prove it, go to Coors Field, Rockies flip him at the deadline type of thing.
If you're going for a 1-year prove it deal and you're a Scott Boras client, Coors Field is the last place you're going to go.
The challenge, I don't know, could be interesting.
Yeah,
it'd be fun.
Okay, fine. Okay, guys, I thought I was gonna get a path to that actually happening.
I don't think we're dropping $20 million for 1 year on a guy. So
not this year. Next year, who knows what the Rockies might do? We'll see. But give me just Skyler. I know I've done this to you a couple of times, but right now, just hit me with the Rockies hot take that's on your mind, either positive or negative. I'll even open it up to the negative side there. I'm usually trying to keep it positive here before the season starts, but give me a Rockies hot take, positive or negative.
And let's see. My last one was Cal Quantrill with an under 4 ERA. I think for me, Charlie Blackmon hits 20 home runs again.
That'd be great. I'd love that.
Works for me.
Evan, do you have one?
I was going to go with something Charlie Blackmon related either. So now I feel like I have to pivot to something different. But I'm going to say Charlie Blackmon is an all-star.
Wow. Okay.
Even hotter take.
Whoa. I mean, here, and I'll build off that, actually. The Rockies have 2 all-stars.
Yeah.
Their mandatory one, and one of the young guys plays their way into the spot. Either Brenton Doyle's improved offense mixed with his defense makes him an internet sensation. That player, like that teams, every time they play the Rockies are like, who the hell is this guy? And why does he keep robbing all of these things while stealing a base and hitting, a key double? Or it's Nolan Jones, Ezekiel Tovar. I think I'll build off of the all-star, and I'll say the Rockies have multiple all-stars, or at least a very, very, very strong case for the Rockies to have multiple all-stars. These guys are the all-stars of Rockies coverage. Evan Lang and Skyler Timmins. Guys, as always, let's get the preview. Where can they go? Where can they find all of the work?
You can find us over writing at purplerow.com. Evan does Monday articles. I do the Wednesday ones. We'll also have game threads doing all that kinds of stuff. And then writing for fansfirstsportsnetwork.com. You can find us there. And then our podcast at ROCKY MTN Rooftop, Rocky Mountain Rooftop, and Every Rocky Ever. Find us on Twitter, Instagram. Good stuff.
Excellent.
YouTube.
Twins the tube.
Yep, the YouTube, as always great help if you can go there. But folks, I'm Paul Holden. I am the host of the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can find us on your favorite streaming services. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Our week of Rockies media, folks, continues as we'll keep talking to Rockies folks leading up to opening day as we get ever so close to more Rockies baseball. Well, regular season Rockies baseball. Folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.